everybody. I'm welcoming back Vinh Giang for the second part of our In Conversation series. Vinh, in the first part of our series, we talked a little bit about the importance of virtual image, and now we're getting into a little bit more about vocal image. Can you tell me a little bit more about how leaders can improve their vocal image?
Look, I think this is a very important area, and I'm glad we're discussing it. When you're thinking about how to style your vocal image, there's 5 core foundations when it comes to how to use your voice. Now, I call these the vocal foundations. When it comes to the vocal foundations, the first thing you have to become conscious of is your rate of speech. Your rate of speech. And I believe in experiential learning. So for those of you who are watching this, imagine what would happen to you if I started this particular episode right now and I spoke with this rate of speech. Just think about what you're doing. You're probably wondering what's happening on the next tab, checking Netflix to see if there's a new show. So the slow rate of speech, if I stuck to that as a default rate of speech, it's bad. But then imagine again, you tuned into this episode and I spoke this quickly as I took you through the 5 core foundations of communication. And I maintained that for the entire 5 minutes. You'd probably check out what's happening on the Facebook tab, see if a friend added you from your childhood that is awkward. You're probably wondering to check out something else. But you see, the fast rate of speech is not going to work either if you stick to it as a default rate of speech. But then even if I stick to a fairly engaging rate of speech like I am now and I don't vary it at all and I keep to this rate of speech, it also becomes monotonous after a while. So the key to realize here and learn here is that effective communication when it comes to rate of speech is that you must vary your rate of speech. Any default rate of speech gets monotonous. And the rule of thumb is very simple. If what you're saying is very important and it's critical, slow down. And if it's not, then it's okay. Speed up, move over it. That simple rule of thumb is going to allow you to vary your rate of speech with meaning. So that's the first thing. The second foundation is volume. Now, volume is very powerful because volume is the lifeblood of your voice. And I tell my students, volume, I see it as having a scale from 1 to 10. And a lot of my students, when they come to me, they tend to be speaking at a level 3 volume. And if you're speaking at a level 3 out of 10 volume, you're lacking so many qualities. Because with a good amount of volume, it shows confidence. With a good amount of volume, it shows authority. It also shows that you believe in the things that you are saying. It's probably the most powerful quality about volume. And on top of that, it shows vitality. And as leaders, all of these components are extremely important. Whereas, again, I believe in experiential learning. If I cut back to a level 3 volume, imagine I spoke throughout the entire video like this. And how does that make me seem confidence-wise or authority-wise? Or does it seem like I believe in the things that I'm saying? Do I seem like I have the vitality component? So you can see how powerful it is. And in particular, I want to say this as well, is that if you're communicating virtually with your team right now, naturally speaking to a camera reduces our energy by 30% at least. Because when we meet with people, the human-to-human connection all of a sudden amps up our energy. We become more engaged and our volume is increased. Whereas when you're speaking to a camera, that chemistry isn't there. So all of a sudden, you drop your energy levels just naturally out of the gate by 30%. So if you're communicating virtually, immediately punch up your volume by 30%. Whatever you're doing, punch it up a little bit, because that's very important for you to become more effective, for all of those wonderful qualities with volume to come across. The third one is pitch. Pitch and melody. And I want to do an experiment here, a very simple experiment. So I'm going to bring you back over here for a second. I'm going to play a piano track for you, and I want you to listen to this. So have a listen to this and kind of take note on how it makes you feel. Just kind of sad, right? It's kind of sad, melancholy, kind of yeah, kind of a very quiet feeling, absolutely. And we'll try one more. We'll try one more, Danielle. So how about this one? How does that make you feel?
Oh, it's a little bit exciting. It's got a little bit of life to it.
Yeah, so it's uplifting, kind of inspiring.
Absolutely.
Now, what's really interesting about this is that there are no words to these piano songs, yet it had an impact on how you felt. And what that tells us is that there's a melody that lives underneath your voice. And I call this the leader's instrument because that's exactly what it is. Underneath your voice right now as a leader, every time you communicate, whether it's in person or virtually, there's a melody that lives underneath your voice. And you have to think about, well, what kind of melody am I playing? Because that's going to have a huge impact on what my people feel. And think about the melody and the meaning that lives underneath your voice right now when you speak. And I'll teach you a really good self-awareness exercise in the next time when we meet for the third time. But I want to bring you now to the next foundation. And the next foundation is tonality. And tonality is the emotion that lives underneath our voice. And what I mean by this is, in psychology, they say there are 6 core human emotions. You've got happy, sad, disgust, fearful, surprised, and angry. These are the 6 core human emotions. And to be able to become an effective communicator and therefore an effective leader, you need to be able to portray these emotions with the people that you lead. Whereas a lot of the times when people speak, they have a default tonality. And it's one that is rather bland and doesn't have any emotion attached to it. So what we have to understand is the way we control the type of tonality that we have when we speak is with our facial expressions. And we have a blank tonality when we tend to speak with a blank face. So if I make my face extremely blank right now, see how it impacts the way I sound. There's no tonality. It's completely removed from my voice. Whereas if you just do a slight smile, it changes it again. Or if I do a slight frown, then it changes the emotion with my words. I'm not sad, but this comes across as sad some reason because facial expressions are the remote control that helps you inject tonality into your voice. So if you want to be a leader who shows more empathy, when someone's telling you about something that's very difficult, you want to engage in a facial expression that will inject the specific emotion that will show them you're empathizing. So this is very important. And the final one is the pause. This right here. A lot of people are afraid of the pause. However, when you pause, you give people time to process what you've just said. Especially right now when leaders are asking so much from their people and trying to get their people sometimes to do more with less. You want to make sure that when you're sharing new information, especially if it's complex, that you pause to give them time to process. And not only are you giving them to process, if you pause long enough, you're giving them time to think about what they're going to do and then ask you questions as well, so that you can enhance communication. This is a very powerful foundation. And the other thing that's very powerful about pausing is when you learn to get very comfortable with the pause, you start to get rid of all the ums and the ahs, the filler words and the non-words from your vocabulary. This is the biggest killer when it comes to poor leadership. Because when you say and ah and you use filler words, I'll give you an example. Imagine I was teaching you the pause and, when we're going through the pauses and, it helps clarify what you're saying because it gives people an opportunity to really think. Just experience that for a moment. When you use filler words and non-words and you're not aware of them, it decreases the clarity of your message. And it destroys the level of impact that you could have, the potential impact you could have. So when you get more comfortable with the pause, it gets rid of all the fillers and all the non-words. And it makes you an incredibly clear and concise communicator. These are the 5 core foundations when it comes to brilliant communication. And when you see a great speaker, when you see a great communicator, this is all they're doing. This is all they're doing, these 5 core things. And if you think I'm decent at communication, this is all I'm doing. However, it may seem simple, but it's not easy. And to me, if you want to master the leader's instrument, the voice, you need to master these 5 core foundations.